Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 10 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series, presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight, here for 100 laps at the Concord Speedway for round number 3 of the season. Another one of those tracks on the iRacing.com platform that unfortunately not with us anymore in the real world. This track opened up back in 1982 up in Concord, North Carolina, and held a whole lot of pretty much every kind of your local grassroots short track racing there was to have, but unfortunately they shut their doors back in 2019 and the track has since been demolished, but its memory lives on here on the iRacing.com platform, and its memory lives on as one of the most technical and difficult short tracks here on the platform. It's been run here for 7 seasons so far out of the past 10 here in the Oval Series, and no drivers, actually that's not true, one driver has gotten a repeat win here. That is Benjamin Harst, who took home the win here in Season 1 and then again in Season number 6. But aside from that, all new winners throughout the history of this speedway, and I'll tell you what, there are plenty of drivers out here on the speedway tonight looking to add to that list. But we are getting our way down to the speedway, starting to line things up down on the starting grid here this evening. So let's take a look down there and see what the lineup is here for this evening. Starting out on the pole of this one, that's going to be the number 45 of Mr. Travis Sukup, the driver that took home the win at this speedway last season. Starting to his outside, that's going to be the 99 of Tyler McRae, teammate to Travis Sukup, who is currently leading the championship standings by 25 points coming into tonight's event. Starting back in P number 3, that is the SM Racing driver, that is Garrett Streets, rounding out your top 3 here this evening. Back and forth, that is going to be Brian Sabelski, rocking the Laconii Setup Shop paint scheme here this evening. A new paint scheme for him as of last week. Have to see if it manages to bring him any good luck here tonight. Back in 5th place, that driver out of Canada, that is Mr. Brandon Feeney, rocking a brand new paint scheme here this evening, rocking the Feeney Call number 38 here this evening. And finally, rounding out the field here tonight, that's going to be the number 14 of Mr. Nico Morelli, the driver that we have had to talk about so much this season, the driver that absolutely despised the street stock last season, said it was really not his choice of car. We switched to the late model here this season, and he has had consistent top 5 finishes every single race, so gonna be a driver we're gonna have to keep an eye on here this evening. But that said, getting ready to go green flag racing here. iRacing.com pace truck pulling on down to the safety of pit lane. 100 laps the distance here tonight, and as we come out of turn number 3, green flag up in the air here at the Concord Speedway for round number 3 of the ASRC Oval Series. Everyone's getting it rolling, looking pretty fine and dandy around the field. A little bit of too wide back in the back. That's Brandon Feeney and Brian Sabelski. They're battling it out a little bit back for the 5th position. But everyone's single filing out pretty darn quickly here. Long way left to go in tonight's event. No need to be pushing it too hard in the early stages of this one. Might as well settle yourself on in for the long run here tonight. Try and make those tires last. Try and make a little bit of strategy calls here. Because especially with as few cars as we have here on the speedway, there likely are not going to be any cautions to depend on to lean on later in this race and try and make your strategies down on pit road under yellow. It's probably going to end up coming down to these drivers' calls under the green flag as to how this race is going to play out. But for right now, Brandon Feeney, Brian Sabelski battling it out for the 4th position, the closest battle on the speedway. 2/10 of a second separating these two drivers. Everyone else on the speedway a little bit more spread out, call it about 4 to 5/10 of a second, and then even over a second in some cases for some of these other drivers. Travis Sukup, he is leading the way in tonight's event in that number 45 machine. No wins to his name quite yet this season. He tied Tyler McRae for wins last season in the number 45 machine. And he's looking tonight, trying to take home the first win of the season for that number 45 machine. Currently coming into tonight's event, he is tied for second place in the championship standings with Brian Sabelski, of course currently running back in the 5th position right now. So right now, things looking pretty dang good for Mr. Sukup, but still a long way left to go in this race for that to actually be settled out here this evening. Just behind him, back in position number 2, that's the 99 of Tyler McRae. Tyler, of course, is our championship leader coming into tonight. 67 points to his name. 2 wins to his belt. Took home the win last week at North Wilkesboro. Took home the win in round number 1 at the South Boston Speedway. So 2 drivers, both for Droppin Bombs Racing, pretty much were the names to beat all of season number 9. And they are here ready to continue that rivalry all throughout season number 10. But you can't count out that driver that's back in position number 3 right now. That is the 15 of Garrett Streets, 1/2 of the SM Racing Products team. That, of course, is very generously being the title sponsor of the ASRC Oval Series here this season. Of course, if you want to check out the work that they do over at SM Racing, that is their website at sm-racingproducts.com, or you can give them a check out on Facebook, which of course is also SM Racing Products. These 2 drivers, just sim racers that decided they didn't quite like what all options were out there on the market for the gear they needed, so they decided, you know what, why don't we try making it ourselves? And sure enough, now him teamed up together with Jeremy Marr, who unfortunately was not able to attend tonight's event, and started putting together button boxes and a couple of other racing products for y'all to enjoy. And of course, with them being the sponsor here of the SRC Oval Series here this season, they are going to be looking to give one of those button boxes away to whoever takes home the championship this season. So more on the line for these drivers here this season than it has ever really been on the line before. Up until this point, it's always just been for bragging rights here in the SRC Oval Series, but now there's a physical item up for grabs, a bit of a trophy for all of these drivers' hard work. Looking a bit further back in the field though, the battle on the speedway closest one is still the battle between Sabelski and Feeney. The battle back for position number 4. These 2 drivers have been nose to tail all evening. Both drivers rocking new paint schemes. And I'll tell you what, at a glance, with them having similar motifs with the black cars with the white highlights, you'd almost think they were teammates. But not quite. These 2 drivers don't actually have a whole lot of history together, at least that I'm aware of up here in the broadcasting booth. When he joined the league back 2 seasons ago, competed part-time in season number 8 and part-time in season number 9, only making a couple of starts in both seasons. But so far, he's been here full-time here, so far at least, in season number 10 of the ASRC Oval Series. Of course, rocking that the Feeney Hall livery here this evening, and he has decided that he is going to start up a podcast, take the time to talk to some of the drivers at the short track he competes at up in Canada, try and bring some attention to the racing scene there, and maybe give racing fans a little bit more insight into what all goes on at the grassroots level of motorsports up in Canada. So, of course, that is the Feeney call. Definitely be sure to give him a look at some point. Right now, though, Feeney rolling it back in the 4th position. He and Sabelski are the only drivers who have changed his position so far this evening from where they qualified. And, of course, Feeney up a spot, Sabelski down a spot here this evening. Both drivers catching up to that 15 of Garrett Streets pretty darn quickly, though. And Feeney, for a second, looked like he was thinking about trying to make a move down there. Not quite going to do it. He backed out of it just a little bit, but now just like that, 3 cars under a blanket. This is for 5th, 4th, and 3rd, respectively. And all of them about a little bit less than a 0.2 of a second between all of them. Feeney's going to go way down low. He's going to go for the pass. And it looks like he's going to make it work. Hasn't quite cleared that 15 of Garrett Streets just yet, but coming out of turn number 3, he makes it happen. Streets up into the outside wall a little bit. Turn 3, often regarded as the most difficult corner here on the circuit. Concord Speedway, of course, like I said, coming into tonight's event, it's one of the more difficult short tracks here on the iRacing.com platform. If you're familiar with the Pocono Raceway that NASCAR competes at, it's a little bit like that, but just very, very substantially smaller. Only 0.5 miles in length, or 0.8 kilometers in length, but 3 corners, 3 straightaways, each at different elevations and bankings and angles. So there really is no perfect way to tune your car to tackle this track, because every single sector is just an entirely different experience from the previous one. Right now, everyone seems to be rolling around the speedway with not all that much to worry about. Our race leader of Travis Sukup has built up a very impressive lead here this evening. Call it almost 2.5 seconds between himself and any other driver on the speedway. Let's actually break down a little bit of a top-down view here, see if we can't get a better sense of scale here on the speedway, see if we can't see where our race leader is compared to the rest of the drivers. Of course, Sukup just coming out of turn number 3. He's going to be crossing the finish line. We jump further back. Sukup, or actually McCrae, excuse me, call him about at least 8 or 9 car lengths back from our race leader. Then another jump back to Brandon Feeney. Of course, there he is, still battling it out with Brian Sabelski. I'll tell you what, with how these 2 drivers have been duking it out, I'm not quite sure that they are actually going to have the fuel necessary to make it to the end. I could be mistaken on that, of course. With these late model stock cars, just got added to the iRacing.com platform a month ago, almost on the dot. So, not quite able to call them a new car anymore, but compared to that previous late model that they replaced that had almost 8 years of history here on the iRacing.com platform, having it replaced by a new car like this one is still a bit of a shake-up to these drivers. Still a little bit of muscle memory from those old cars that needs to be shaken off. But the general consensus seems to be that these newer late model stocks are better to drive. There have been some complaints from some drivers I've spoken to who have said they feel like the late model stock has too much grip. It turns a little bit too well, it brakes a little bit too well. They think it's just a little bit better than it's supposed to be. Now, whether or not that is actually the case remains to be seen. Of course, I have no real-world racing experience. That much is for certain. But these drivers here on the RSN.com platform pretty consistently putting on a heck of a show in these brand new late model stocks, so who really cares all that much? It's a darn good time to see these drivers out here on the speedway competing. Now, a driver we haven't been able to talk about much, a driver we actually brought up at the very beginning of the race, talking about how much he absolutely adored the brand new late model stock. That is the 14 of Mr. Nico Morelli, currently being scored a lap down here this evening. I'm not seeing any reports of him having any incidents here this evening, so maybe just not having the car handling quite the way he wants it to. Looking at the lap times, Morelli is about a tenth of a second or so off the pace, but shouldn't be enough to have him mocked a lap down just like that. But speaking of strategies here, Garrett Street's going to be the first driver down on pit lane here this evening. Street's going to be coming on down. Let's have to see what the call is going to be for his strategy here tonight. At least 2 tires on that number 15 machine. Will he take 4? The answer is no. 2 tires and fuel is going to be the call for Garrett Streets. And of course, Streets, the only driver that has come down pit lane so far, come down on lap number 45. That should make him good on fuel for the remainder of this race, but that also is having him being scored 2 laps down right now, so going to be a little bit of a hassle to recover from all that. That said, as these drivers get themselves sorted out, how about we take a moment to ride on board with your race leader here this evening, get a little bit of an experience of what these drivers are battling with out here on this miniature tricky triangle. Tyler McRae and Brian Sabelski both electing to make the call to come down to pit lane in these past couple of laps. McRae down lap 52, Sabelski down lap 51. And now our race leader Travis Sukup also going to be coming down pit lane here this evening, so that leaves just Morelli and Feeney out on the speedway as the last drivers who have not come down. For the most part, aside from Mr. Garrett Streets, who pitted back on lap 45, looking like fairly similar strategies around the speedway. Everyone has more or less the same idea on when they want to make their stops. But that is going to have Brandon Feeney out in front as our race leader. So that will be giving Feeney a bonus point in the championship standings for tonight's event for having led at least 1 lap on the speedway here this evening. Things looking fairly spread out now as everyone gets themselves situated with their pit stops. Looking at the pit stop times though so far, it's looking like the calls seem to be 2 tires and fuel for everyone except for Tyler McRae. McRae is a bit of an interesting situation because his pit stop was about 3 seconds shorter than everyone else's, and that makes me wonder if McRae actually went for a fuel-only stop and didn't take tires here this evening. That's a very big what-if, but we'll have to see how it plays off for him. And Nico Morelli diving it down to pit lane, and he had a little bit of contact with the inside wall there in that number 14. But that's going to bring Morelli on down pit lane, and now Feeney, who is still out on the speedway, remains as the final driver to have not yet come down here tonight. 60 laps in the books though. 61 laps actually, the distance completed. Going to be 62 when we cross the line here. Feeney is making this fuel stretch. I don't think he'll be able to stretch it all the way to the end here tonight, but he definitely is picking up that bonus point for leading at least one lap, and depending on how he manages to stretch this out, it is possible that he could even pick up the bonus for leading the most laps, but that requires him staying up in the front of this race for the entire rest of its duration. And I'll tell you what, race fans, that is going to have his work cut out for him. He has drivers, sure, they are a lap down, but they, one, are full on fuel, so they don't have to save it all, and also have about 50 lap newer tires than he does in that 38 machine, so not going to be an easy task to hold on to that lead, but if he does make it happen, he could potentially be picking up even more bonus points here this evening. Currently the driver back in position number 2. The first one Feeney has to worry about is Travis Sukup, who is currently half a speedway behind, about 13 seconds behind Brandon Feeney. But looking at the lap times, last time by, Sukup was a full second faster than Brandon Feeney. Feeney is having to save really, really hard here. And actually, let's wait for Feeney to cross the line again, get some more updated stats here, just to be sure he didn't have a little bit of a fluke of a lap. And sure enough, again, last time by, Sukup just a few thousandths of a second slower than being a full second faster around the speedway than Feeney was. So I don't know if this saving strategy is going to work out for Feeney. I think his only real hope here is to just save really, really hard and hope that there's a caution and he'll be able to pit under yellow, but we only have 6 cars on the speedway and they're all very strung out here this evening. I don't think Feeney's chances of having a yellow to play with here are going to be looking very good here tonight. And Brian Sabelski passes our race leader down low on the inside, so Sabelski is going to unlap himself. Feeney, Sukup, McRae, Sabelski, your top 4 drivers all on the lead lap. Garrett Streets pretty far behind our race leader though. And just like that though, Feeney is going to come down pit lane. He has decided, you know what? I've stretched the fuel as long as I can. I've picked up the lead lap bonus point. It's time to come on down. Because I think he's in the same sort of headspace that I am right now. I don't think that there's going to be a caution in these remaining couple of laps that he could have used to safely come down without going down a lap. Feeney's going to take fuel and he's going to head back out onto the speedway, and that will complete the pit cycle. Everyone on the track has now come down at least one time. Most of the drivers actually all came down together back at the halfway point of this race, but now as we get 75 laps into tonight's event, about to be 25 laps left to go, we're just going to have to see how these differing strategies play out. Looking at the lap times, once they update, sure enough, Feeney did just set the fastest lap on the speedway that time by with a 16.07. but that's only about 2/10 faster than the rest of the field. I don't know if that will be enough to catch him up and unlap himself either. Now, with how things are looking right now, if there were to be a caution, that would put Garrett Streets back on the lead lap, so Feeney wouldn't even get the lucky dog. So that 38 driver finding himself in a fairly difficult situation here this evening with 23 laps left to go. Further up the field, though, Travis Sukup, still your race leader here tonight in that Total Car Care Droppin Bombs Racing entry. He's led about half the laps so far tonight, and he's looking to try and take home the lead in these final 21, and honestly, it's looking like he's pretty dang well suited to do it. He's got a 5-second lead over his teammate Tyler McRae. You could actually see him back in the background, probably about a third of a speedway behind that 45 machine. Quite a distance he has to make up here tonight, and look at the lap times. They're so similar that 5 seconds is not going to be closed in these remaining 20 laps unless something a little bit miraculous happens for that number 99 machine. That said, Tyler McRae is your championship's point leader, and he has enough of a gap that even if the race ends with him in second and Sukup in the lead, he still will be the championship leader going into round 4 next week. So, even if he doesn't take home the win, still a very comfortable lead he has to work with in the championship standings. It will narrow the gap just a little bit for the driver of that number 99 machine. He will have a little bit more pressure from Travis Sukup in the point standings, but not a super massive amount. Brandon Feeney getting caught up to, catching up to Garrett Streets here. So Feeney is looking to try and make a pass for position on the speedway right now, trying to get around that number 15 of the SM Racing driver. Both drivers currently being scored a lap down, but they are battling for position, and sure enough, Streets going to go way up high. Feeney's going to make the pass. That's going to bump Streets back into the 5th position. Nico Morelli right there as well in that 14 machine, but unfortunately not on the same lap as the 38 and 15, so they are not battling for position. Morello just kind of along for the ride right here as we have 13 laps left to go. Of course, here in the ASRC Oval Series, caution laps do not count, so if we somehow manage to have 6 cautions in these next 13 laps, everyone would be put back on the lead lap, but somehow, some way, I just get a bit of a feeling that the chances of that happening are slim to none here tonight. 12 laps left to go, though. Travis Sukup still sealing the show here this evening with not a whole lot out on the speedway he has to worry about here tonight. Clear speedway all up in front of him, clear speedway all behind him. He's pretty much cruising around at this point. He just has to get through these remaining 10 laps, and he'll be good to go. He will be taking home his first win of the season at the same track that he took home a win last season. Of course, not saying a whole lot since Sukup did take home 6 wins last season. Taking a look down at my notes, it looks like Sukup took home the win at Stafford, USA International Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Myrtle Beach Speedway, Irwindale, and then Concord was actually round 11 of the championship. So his win at Concord was fairly recent. And just a matter of using that momentum to carry him home to another win here this evening. But still, 7 laps left to go, and we have seen stranger things happen in a matter of 7 laps. So I'm not going to jinx it for that Droppin Bombs Racing driver, but things are looking pretty good for him out here on the speedway here tonight. Back in third, that Makoni setup shop driver, that is Brian Sabelski, though, finished on the podium last week at North Wilkesboro, a third place finish for round number 2, and then fourth place back at South Boston. So Sabelski also having a pretty solid season here this evening. Of course, Sabelski coming into tonight tied for second in the championship standings as the big high five goes up in the air. Sabelski not going to be tied with Sukup after the end of this race, but still going to be holding on to third place in the championship standings. Of course, four-time champion here in the ASRC Oval Series. Didn't quite manage to get it done last season season number 9. But he's in the contention here in season number 10 in this late model stock, so you never know. Sabelski is a driver we're going to have to keep an eye on. Currently, he is being scored as the last driver on the lead lap, but he still is up inside the top 3, and that is going to do himself a pretty decent favor for the remainder of this race. Just like that, though, the 45 is going to cross the line, and the white flag is going to go up into the air one more time around the speedway for Mr. Travis Sukup. And coming out of turn number 3, just like that, he is going to get it done here at Concord, just like he did in season number 9. And that is going to be his first win in the books for season number 10 of the ASRC Oval Series. Just like that, though. 100 laps in the books in just under 28 minutes. Green flag all the way around the speedway for the entire evening. Travis Sukup managed to get it done here tonight. Of course, don't go anywhere, race fans. We will be back here in just a moment with some words from your top 3 finishers here tonight. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Concord Speedway and welcome back to round number 3 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing. Mr. Sukup, once again, we find you up here in the broadcast booth. You are no stranger to being up here at this point, but this is the first time you've managed to take home the checkered flag here this season, and you did it in quite a domineering fashion. How'd you manage to make it happen here tonight?
I guess you'd say I got lucky. I think in qualifying, I was able to save my tires, so I think that's what helped.
Fair enough. You certainly managed to make it work, but even if you were saving tires, you were setting down some really fast lap times, so you definitely had something figured out here that some of the other drivers didn't. But if my math is correct, I also think you did manage to take home the bonus points for leading the most laps of the race here tonight, so not quite enough to bump you up to the lead of the championship, but you've closed the gap to Tyler pretty considerably heading into next week. Which, where even is next week? Next week is at Five Flags Speedway. How are you feeling heading into a track with a whole lot more banking than this one?
Not bad. I like that track. I'm not the best there, but I enjoy that track. It's a good time. Way better than I like North Wilkesboro.
Fair enough. I respect still being hung up about North Wilkesboro. Not quite the finish you were hoping for, but hey, it's behind us now. We have drop weeks here in the league for a reason. You're still very much in the championship contention here this season, and who knows? Maybe you might be able to make something happen at Five Flags next week.
We'll sure try.
Well, of course, before I let you celebrate getting another win to your name for the record books here in ASRC and your first win of the season, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sukup. Who you want to thank for getting you up here in victory lane?
That's always it's funny to say this, but Tyler's since the beginning has been helping me out. Even if I run better than him, he's still helping me out. Except he did try to hide and pit and not let me know about that. Usually he tells me that, but and the series is a good time, man. I hope to see more people running because it's a good group of people.
Yes, sir. Well, as always, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Five Flags.
All right, thank you for what you do, man.
And bring it home back in position number 2. Tyler, you've been up here on the podium every single race so far this season, but not quite enough to bring it home here tonight. What do you think might have had to have played out different here this evening for you to have a third checkered flag to your name?
Nothing. Mike stomped us. Mike was dominant in practice. I was a little close in practice, but it was like running my car full send. There was no way the setup here is awful. iRacing did a awful job. Whoever made this setup needs to be demoted. It's tight in, tight out, too much gear. Um, the brakes wasn't even working. Help the car rotate right. Um, so yeah, but Mike had it dialed in. He had 1 and 2 like perfect, and he smoked us. It was flat out just a dominant performance. No other way about it. And actually, he's had the fastest car the last 2 weeks. He just wasn't able to put both races together. So he could have been sitting here with 3 wins in a row easily, I think.
Fair enough. Sometimes you just have races like that, though, and still second place looking pretty good. You still managed to make something work here tonight. But
Yeah, I mean
but
when I pitted early, I figured I could secure top 3. And when I saw Brian in there, I thought we might be neck and neck at the end, but we had a little bit of space between us. But I know he got a good little pit strategy there and finished decent too. But just want to thank y'all, man. Thank the league, ASRC, and all the guys. Missed the guys that weren't out here tonight. They're normally with us. They're always a lot of fun. S&M I'm sorry, SM Racing Products, your broadcast. Just want to thank everybody, Dropping Bombs guys and Mike, and I'm happy for it, man. I'm not trying to say I'm down because I got beat. Because if I got to get beat by anybody, it's awesome to get beat by Mike. We're pretty good buddies, but the setup for me was just terrible. As soon as I pulled out on the track, first practice lap, I could be in fourth gear before you even barely get off pit road. I knew we were going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's definitely fair, but hey, I got good news for you at least. Next week, Five Flags Speedway, you have a pretty good track record there, so you got something to look forward to.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, I look forward to this race. I just wish the other guys would come out. I have a good time with them, no matter where anybody finishes. I think it's a good time being out here. So hopefully that track will bring more people. Concord's a little funky, even though it's free. I don't think many people showed up to the last Concord race, actually. Um, so that might be something we look at on the schedule. You know, maybe get rid of the ones that people aren't showing up on. But hope you have a good night. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming out, and congratulations on the podium here tonight.
All right, thank you.
And finishing it back in position number 3, we talked to you last week. You're up here again, and this time I actually realized you are in fact driving the Makoni Setup Shop entry. Brian, you got another podium to your name. How'd you make it happen here tonight?
Patience. I knew I was faster than Brandon on the long run, but I also knew that the second I tried to fight him side by side, we probably both would have slowed down. So it was kind of just for me. It was just, my strategy was I was going to pit early and try and undercut, and it slightly worked. It didn't really work as well as I had hoped around here, but that's just the way that things are. This track is very tight. This track's very short. Laps are fast. It's difficult, but it's one of those things that you kind of just have to deal with. The setup did feel a little weird with it hitting the red line right off the get go from getting into 4, and I'm just like, okay, we'll just have to drive around this. So, yeah, that's just the way the setup is, and you just got to deal with it, and everyone's got to deal with the same problem. So, not really going to complain about it, but yeah, it was a good stream, good race tonight. Third's fine, started 4th, so I finished higher than I started. I'm gonna go rest my arms probably after this because I ran 125 laps of Richmond before this in the next gen Cup car. So
Yeah,
I'm
you
tired.
definitely deserve a break after doing all
I'm
of that.
tired. Too much turning left.
Oh, yeah. And I'd say that I'd let you go and practice for next week's race at Five Flags, but I think the last thing you want to do right now is turn even more left turns. But either
Yep.
way,
Yeah.
congratulations on the podium. And as always, microphone's all yours. Who you want to thank for getting you another top 3 finish here tonight?
Yeah. I want to thank the folks at Makoni Setup Shop, who, by the way, they now have. Since we kind of follow the late model schedule, the official one for the most part. They do have nice little guides to help you figure out how to go fast on the fixed setup, on the setups and the fixed setups and all that for a number of short track Oval Series. So be sure to check out their YouTube channel and their website, of course. Just have to search for Makoni Setup Shop. SM Racing, of course. Thanks for sponsoring the series. Couldn't do all this without them. Aiden, thanks for broadcasting. Hey, everyone in Twitch chat, thanks for hanging out. Always glad to have you here. I know I'm missing someone. You got the league for putting this on. Everyone for coming out tonight. I think a lot of people were either busy and were out of town, or they just didn't want to run Concord because this track can be a pain in the butt to drive sometimes. And tonight was no different, but hopefully we'll see everyone for Five Flags next week.
Good deal. Well, as always, thank you for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep, we'll be here. Catch you then.
You're here, first race fans. Your top 3 finishers here this evening: Travis Sukup, Tyler McRae, Brian Sabelski. And of course, looking at our race results here this evening, not a whole lot to say past that. Only 6 drivers able to attend for round number 3. Brandon Feeney rocking that brand new paint scheme, gonna bring it back in position number 4. Garrett Streets rounding out the top 5 for SM Racing, and Nico Morelli bringing it on home in position number 6. of course, next week, heading on over to the Five Flags Speedway, a track that's debatably a little less tricky than this one, and a track that has a whole lot more racing, especially late model racing history to it. Of course, they are the hosts of the Snowball Derby. So, bound to be a next one, fun one next week. As always, you can tune in same day, same time, Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. Practice opens at 9 p.m. Eastern, but of course that does not get broadcasted. So if you want to join the league, you're certainly welcome to do it. The only requirement is to be a clean and respectable driver, and we're still pretty early on into the season, so why not give it a shot? But for tonight, a big thank you from myself up here in the broadcast booth, everyone here in Attrition Sim Race Campus, and our friends over at SM Racing for tuning in here this evening. And we hope you all have a good rest of your week, race fans. We'll see y'all next time at the Five Flag Speedway.